Hi, everyone. This is Trish Kendall, your host for the Choose and Become interview series. Today, I feel like I need a drum roll. I am excited to have Dr. Rebecca Heiss. So, Rebecca is a biologist, a stress expert, an author of an acclaimed book, Instinct. I always like, and three-time TEDxer. Sought after public speaker, and I just have to do all of those little things, but really is the most important is that you're my friend. You're my friend, and you've been along this little journey with me. So we'll get into that later, but you're my friend. So before we get started, I just want to take a step back so I can set some context for why I have this interview series for anybody that's new to the show. Cool? Okay.
Love it.
So,
Let's
as
go.
Rebecca knows, when I was 20 years old, I was a moment away from ending my life. And I say that specifically for this interview because I have a feeling that some of that might get infused here as I'm with Rebecca today and our perspectives on life. So, I was at the pit of despair, but then I made 5 critical choices that led me to enduring success, true success, lasting success. So this interview series is meant to take some of the lessons and wisdom and perspectives of the people who I admire and learn about your journey. And so I'm going to ask Rebecca her perspective on these 5 critical choices. And so those choices, so for me, make a first choice. For me, it was picking up the phone. Commit to a two-way agreement, build trust in yourself, and then inspire the trust of others, create community and belonging. And then the 5th choice, my most important choice, was to embrace my boundless capacity to give love and to receive love. So I got to start right off the bat and say thank you for choosing to give and receive with me today, Rebecca.
All right, I'm already crying. So, so this is we're off to a good start here. In case
we
anybody
hit it
couldn't
off
tell,
the second we met. With the second we met, we hit it off. Let me stop talking for a while. Will you share, especially with my community who hasn't had the opportunity to know you yet, share a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I mean, you gave me the official introduction of all the things. I think, I aspire to be. I met a guy. And let's tell a quick story because this is how I operate. I met a guy on a river rafting trip. This was insane. It was like, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago. And a bunch of CEOs, all these very, very important people. And I randomly got to go. That's a whole nother story of how I ended up there. But from the kindness of a stranger, essentially, I ended up on this trip with all of these like very self-important people. And they're going around and they're like, oh yes, I'm a Hollywood producer and I'm this, like we're doing introductions, right? And oh yes, I'm the CEO of this big, technology company. And I'm like sitting there going, oh my gosh, what am I gonna say? What am I gonna say? And it gets around to the guy just before me and he goes, I cook chicken. And I was like, oh, okay. And then like I gave my little introduction of like, oh, I'm like a stress physiologist or, and it took me the entire trip, but I finally like he's the CEO and owner of like this massive chain that people would have heard of. But his humility in that moment, I was so inspired by that. So I want to be the person who says, I cook chicken, right? That's how I want my intro to be. What I do is I hang out with beautiful people. I surround myself with beautiful people and
yes!
play with dogs.
Guinness,
and that's mostly who I am.
Wait, but well, no, but sometimes I
Guinness
worry
and
just
Murphy.
in case
Yeah.
anything, I just want to make sure that your dogs are still with you.
No, they're happy. They're safe. They're well. They're spoiled rotten. You'll probably see them wandering and sleep on their designated couch in my office that they have because
I love it.
I'm a dog person. So yeah, and I get to hang out with my wonderful Irish husband as well. So life is good.
You're
good.
You're also
That's
like
me.
I follow you obviously, and I see all the things you do in your Instagram and your blogs, and like I'm captive. You're very adventurous. I think you're very adventurous. Well, first up, I'm totally going off script now. You studied birds.
I love
When
it.
you
Let's go.
studied birds, when I first met you, I was like, what? She studied birds. And like, you owned that kind of like I cook chicken.
I mean, like, little known fact, but yeah, I studied the American crow, everybody's favorite bird, right? Like, very dynamic bird. You either love them or hate them. I happen to be a
Hmm.
lover of American crows. I studied them for 10 years. So yeah, I am a bona fide ornithologist. If you dig deep enough into my background, you will find several published scientific articles on bird nerd things. So
Well, and I just,
yeah, I guess you
it's
can add
just so
that
fascinating
as
to me. And we're going to get to it with the choices, but like, you are a sought after international speaker who motivates and inspires people to like embrace fear, right? Fearless, whatever, like embrace it, let it work for you.
yeah.
And I studied birds. Okay, all right.
Yeah. I mean,
Okay,
yes, yes, that's
so
part of the fear, right? Like, have you
I said
watched the birds by
crows,
Alfred Hitchcock? Come
crows.
on. Yeah.
Okay, all right. I'm gonna
Just
force
saying.
myself. I'm gonna force myself to get focused.
Mm.
You know how I
Why?
feel about enduring success, and I did,
Yeah.
introduce you in those ways because I look up to you, Rebecca, and I aspire to be more like you. So those things I think they're awesome. That all being
Mm.
said, as you sit here today and you reflect on your journey to enduring success, what does creating enduring success mean to you?
You know, I'll I'll start by saying what it used to mean to me. It used to mean proving myself, and I spent a good chunk of my life trying to be the successful thing that everybody else wanted me to be. And I had a good friend say this line to me just recently. It was in the last few months. She said, "You know, Rebecca, the universe doesn't care if you live up to your full potential." And I was like, "Oh, that is so good. That is so good." Like, just I could feel my shoulders just relieve themselves of all. So all that to say, I think the way I define enduring success is letting go of the obsession of legacy that I've had. Like, what's my legacy going to be? I don't have children, I don't have that immediate legacy to pass on. And my legacy has always been, well, I have to do something important so people will remember me and I, I think I'm finally at a point where my definition of enduring success is not having a legacy. It's it's in being so present and mindful of being in the moment with other people that there's nothing. I've lived a good life and I people forget about me and that's okay and that's really beautiful to me. Like, that is to me enduring success because I've lived presently in the moment for myself and for other people that I care about.
And you prefaced this with what my definition used to be compared to what it is today. Am I right in
So
thinking that that definition is very recent?
yeah,
Or has it evolved?
I would say
Before? Okay.
it's evolved. It's definitely evolved, and I would say it's evolved. It's evolved very recently, and Trish is being very kind about not like giving out information that she knows that I am, by the way, totally okay to share. I had a really like near death experience recently, twice, two times in a row now, in the last month. And one of the things that I realized was, unlike before when I had that sort of rug pulled out from me, and I was thinking, oh my gosh, this is the moment of, oh, I might die. Um, I didn't change anything. I didn't want to change anything about my life. I was not scared. I was sad, and that was a real turning point for me. I think before with my definition of enduring success, I'd be scared because I hadn't done it all yet, and I wasn't like I was. And this time, I'm looking at the odds and I'm going, damn, I uh I want to know the ending to this story. I'm just sad. So it was a major
God.
flip for
But
me,
Rebecca, I am
for sure.
so glad you course corrected my comment because my comment was it was
Oh, did
wrong.
I? I'm sorry.
And it was my assumption that what you experienced with your two back to back
Mm.
near-death experiences, and
Yeah.
go to RebeccaHeiss.com, you'll read about it. Like, you're open, you write so beautifully
Yeah.
in a captivating way. So you'll learn more
Thank you.
when you go and check out her blogs or YouTube. But the fact is, you had already embraced that definition and were living that definition of enduring success, which is why you felt like nothing was missing. You were just sad that you, yeah,
Yeah, it was, it's a moment that I have said this to several people. I'm like, I wouldn't wish that experience upon my worst enemy. Like, it's a terrifying
mhm.
moment, right? And your agony. And I wish everybody could have that experience. I know Trish, like
Yeah,
you've experienced that
different,
moment.
yes,
Like, you've had those
yes.
moments. It's very sure, different context, different, but it is it was and continues to
Mm,
be such a gift of like, oh, wow, that's really how I feel about kicking from this earth. Like, oh, then I don't really have
right,
to be afraid of
right,
anything.
totally.
Right? It's a real
Yeah, and the
gift.
only
It's a
reason I
real
say
gift.
different is because
Yeah.
I hadn't evolved. For me, it was like life or death in the same way,
Mm,
but in a
mhm,
very
mhm.
unevolved Trish. So today, yeah,
My
right?
first experience, yeah,
So
sure.
today I
Yeah.
feel very evolved. I feel like I would have in the same, okay,
Yeah.
all right. So as we think about your journey to enduring success, the first critical choice that I made was to pick up the phone. That's what Rebecca and I are talking about. Anybody that follows me or sees the TEDx talk, I picked up the phone the moment my sister called, and it was my first choice. So I've always thought about this. Now, I have since then made other first choices. But what I've learned is that success really begins with making a first choice. When you reflect on your journey, is there a first choice that you know really impacted where you are today?
100%. So uh, this ties in so well because the first moment that I felt my real mortality came about 10 years ago, and it was when my sister called me and said that my sister-in-law, who had been a sister to me for 20 years, was diagnosed with terminal cancer, and it's a moment that pulls the rug out. We've all probably had those phone calls, and I really considered my own mortality. And I thought, gosh, if that had been my diagnosis, I'd be so disappointed with the life that I'd lived. Right. So I quit my job, I sold my house, and I divorced my husband. So maybe it's a three first choicer, but like I knew the choice that I made was that I was done living
Mm,
in fear. And every decision I'd made up to that point, I'd made out of fear. I'd made out of fear that I was going to disappoint my parents. I was going to disappoint, my professor. I was going to disappoint whoever the person of the hour was that I had to prove myself to. And so that first decision was I'm no longer living in fear of disappointing
it
people.
is, it's simple yet profound. And now you help leaders and not even just leaders, just people around the world embrace that a little bit with fearless. What I think is interesting
Yeah.
is most of the time my follow-up question is, and so now we're just going to be reflective here for a minute. Most of my time, my follow-up question is,
Yeah.
why is it so hard to make a first choice? And what do you think the number one
Ugh,
answer is? What's the number?
so hard.
Yes,
Fear.
it's
It's
fear.
fear. It's terrifying. It's always scary. And you know what? This is actually maybe something that we can lean into because what I've realized now, when I feel fear, I'm like, oh, that's something you
Mhm.
need to do. Right? It's not a run away from it. It's a signal that like there's something important there and I really need to look at it closely rather than, oh, hide it up, turn it away. Like this is what we do with stress all the time, right? We don't want to stress. We're like, oh, let's do some yoga, do some meditation. Not that there's anything wrong with yoga and meditation. Big fan. But like you can't just get rid of it. You're like balling it up and hiding it away. And we know the outcomes get worse. Same thing with fear. If I feel fear or stress, I'm like, that needs my attention. I need to look very closely at that. So,
It's
yeah, I think it's a
impactful to
great
get it.
insight.
The
Yeah.
second critical choice that I made on my journey was not just to enter a two-way agreement, but to commit to a two-way agreement. Now, for me, that agreement was between me and my sister as she took me into her home, and it was a near contractual agreement. So I want to reflect a little bit on two-way agreements, and then I'd love for you to share a two-way agreement that you've committed to, what you gave and what you got. So we'll explore that. But I first, for those people that are new to watching the series, when I think about a two-way agreement, first off, I think we all enter into them informally and formally all of the time. It's like whether or not we're committing. It's the commitment part. So two people coming together, or two entities, but I will keep it people, two people coming together with the uh, mutual intent of a positive desired outcome, right? Like this is a positive desired outcome. My outcome might be different than your outcome, but we're in this, we're committing, I'm giving, I'm getting, you're getting. So for me, what I experienced is when I first started to commit to this two-way agreement with my sister, I had like this attitude of, ugh, ugh, I have to have family, I have to sit down and have family meals with her. Like, what is this going to do? And I just held on to this. I have to. But then as I committed, my feelings transformed to I want to. And for me, that's the power of it. So I always want to get perspective on other two-way agreements. So just like, think about and even just rattle off any two-way agreements you've entered into. And is there one that you would explore with me?
I mean, there's a bunch. I'm trying to think of the best one. The two-way agreement that comes to mind
No,
is not very profound,
give me
but I think it's one. I
practical.
think it's one that
Yes.
like a lot of people can relate to. Yeah, a lot of people can relate to. So I have an agreement with my dear friend who lives just upstairs from me that we are doing the 5:30 a.m. spin class every Tuesday. You guys, when I tell you that every single Monday night I'm going, I'm not gonna do this. This sucks so much. I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna do it. I need my sleep. I'm like
Yeah.
justifying all the things, doing all of the ways. And because I know she's doing the exact same thing, it actually makes it easier. And because I know that she's like, I hate this, I don't want to do it, but I know Rebecca's gonna be there. And I'm like, I know Lee's gonna be there. We show up for each other. And afterwards, right, we're always so grateful that we did because it feels so
Let's
good
do
and
it
we're so happy about it.
tomorrow.
And that, right. And oh my gosh, every triathlon I have ever run, I'm never doing one of these ever again as I'm doing it. The second I cross the finish line, when's the next date we can do? Like, oh gosh. And it is, you're absolutely right. It's that mentality shift. And one of the things that I've found has been really helpful for me in those two-way agreements is in thinking about how I feel like when I'm doing the I have to. As you said, I want to. Like I want to show up for Lee. I want to feel so good. I'm doing this for my health. Like I want to feel good. And what I end up focusing on is not even the want to, because there's sometimes I can't convince myself that I want to, right? It's the how I feel after. How I feel when I've honored the commitment to my friend and to myself. I'm like, damn, I'm a good person, right? Like it's not even about the
The
cycle, which also
endorphins. You
feels
didn't
good,
say
right? I
how I
also feel
feel
good
from
from
the
the exercise,
endorphins.
right?
It was honoring my commitment.
Right. This is about to myself and to my partner,
That's awesome.
my friend. And that is the
That's
thing
awesome.
that drives you at me, people sometimes.
I love it. And what day of the week is
It's
it? It's
small
Monday.
things,
Is it
right?
Monday? So you're going tomorrow morning.
It's
Yeah. I mean,
Tuesdays.
what today? What is
It's
today? I
Tuesdays.
was like, what is today? Today is Monday. So you're going tomorrow
Today is
morning.
Monday, so guess where I will
Awesome.
be tomorrow
That's
at
awesome.
5:30.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't wait
And then you'll think
to
about
feel good
honoring your
about honoring
commitment.
my commitment. Yeah.
The third
Yep,
critical
for
choice
sure.
that I made on my journey was to build trust. Now, for me,
Mm.
it started with really having to build trust in myself. So whatever, right? Like I couldn't trust myself
Huge.
to do
It's
anything.
huge. It's
I couldn't trust
hard.
myself to do anything.
No.
But even since way back
Mm.
when, I've still struggled with building trust in myself and thinking about how do I build this up and trust myself that I know that I got it, but way back when it was just the stakes were so high. I learned that if I did the little things great, great things would happen. for me, the great thing that happened by doing the little things was that I trusted myself and then I earned the trust of others.
Mm,
So,
mm.
have you experienced in your life the need to build trust in yourself?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, and, here's the thing. I believe, and maybe this is just me trying to comfort me, but I believe that everybody has that experience. Whether or not they admit to it is another thing. But I believe everybody has to build trust in ourselves because, especially, and I'll say especially women, I think societally we're taught don't trust yourself. That intuition, don't trust that. It has to be science based. It has to be head based. It has to be logic based. And as a scientist, I'm saying this, right? And I am a full believer in the science, and I'm also a full believer in that intuition. Martha Beck once was pulled aside. She's a sociologist, a Harvard trained sociologist, and has since written a whole bunch of really interesting books on
Mm.
manifestation. And some NPR interviewer said, "Well, you don't actually believe in all that stuff, do you?" And she's like, "Oh no, of course not. I just don't not
Oh,
believe it." Right? And I'm like, "Oh gosh, that's me. That's how I feel about me. Like, it's not that I believe myself. I just don't not believe." And I think there's power in that ambiguity of giving yourself the space. So yeah, there's been a lot of times when I haven't trusted
yeah, yeah,
myself. I'll,
yeah.
I'll
Tell
tell you
me,
the
and
most
then
recent
I want to
one.
get into how you build it.
This
Tell me.
is yeah, this is literally last week. Last week I'm in the hospital and I'm like, something is not right. Like my arm, there's something that is not right. And I'm like, I think I have a blood clot. And I tell my doctor this, and they're like, "No, IVs hurt," and I'm like, "No, this is not right." And I spent, when I tell you, like, it was 10 minutes of going back and forth with this doctor, right? White lab coat, whole 9 yards. He knows what he's doing, and I'm like, I have to trust myself. I have to advocate for myself here. I had two blood clots. Like, this is it was a great moment for me to go,
Mhm.
yes, trust yourself. You know your body, you know yourself, you know your
Mm.
mind. And I'm saying that to not just myself, but anybody who's listening, like, you know yourself. Don't, just because some expert is telling you that's not the way it is, doesn't mean you should always
Mm.
listen. Like, listen with a grain of salt and hold true to that.
How do how do people inspire your trust?
uh,
Mm.
by showing up as themselves. I think this is the best way that I know how to inspire trust. I am myself. Whether you see me on a podcast, you meet me on the street, or you see me on stage,
100%.
like, you're gonna get the
100.
exact same Rebecca. Like, I don't know how to be anything else. And I think the best way we can inspire trust is to stop pretending. Like, don't wear the mask. Like, I'm not a good salesperson. I'll tell you that from the start. And if I'm on a call with you and I am trying to sell you something, I'm probably going to say I'm not a good salesperson. Like, what do I do? Like, I don't. I I think people see themselves in that. My line that I use a lot is, when you show up fearless, you allow others to do the same. Right? When we show up all in, it's like, oh, I see you, and if this is safe for you to do that, to be that, then maybe I can show up as who
And
I
you
am
model
too.
that. You do.
Yeah.
It permeates out of you. And
Thanks.
it is an interesting, so I'll
Thanks.
just detour us. I'm not detouring, I'm just going deeper. When we were first introduced, we had a video meeting. We hit it off. It might have been a phone call. I can't remember. Either way, it was a phone call, then video, then phone call. Doesn't matter. We hit it off. And then I even was like, okay, so like did Rebecca really like embrace me? Like was she, you know what I mean? Like, so
Oh,
was it a
oh,
one time
yeah.
experience with Rebecca, me feeling this, or is that what it feels like to be with her? And then I was lucky enough that we're part of the
Oh,
same, group as professional speakers. And so I've been able to experience
yeah.
you in other settings with other people around. And then when I delivered my first TED Talk, my first TED Talk, and you and
Ah,
I was on the program with you, and it was your third. And Rebecca, I am telling you, and even for me, like, I didn't mean to turn to make this about me. I had to build my trust to deliver a message in a different
Mm.
form with a different audience in a different way in front of my peers that freaked me out. And I had to build,
Hmm.
yeah, terrified. I was like,
Terrified.
oh, audience video? I don't care.
Terrified.
Like, my peers are there. You know? Oh my God.
Terrified.
But
Terrified.
you were fearless in the way that you showed up that day, and you gave me, not just me, your full attention. It was like I thought to myself, is she even thinking about her speech? Like, oh my God, I was in my head. But you showed up in such a way of, this is who you are. It was like I felt like we were two friends sitting in the back having like some sparkling water and charcuterie board, talking, where I was
That's
sweating
man, that's
and
enduring
freaking
success for
out.
me.
But
That's
I tell
great.
that story because what I have experienced is what you just said, is around people
Yeah.
showing up and being themselves. You model that, which, especially as a woman,
Yeah.
and then I'll get off it, but especially as a woman, then to know that uh it's not actually just okay, it's better for everyone when we do. It's better for everyone when we do. We
You
elevate
know,
and fuel the success of others
yep,
when we choose to show up in that way.
yep. It's true. It's true. And I cannot let you come off of that whole stint where I'm sitting here going like, you don't know. I was definitely as scared, if not more scared, than anybody on that stage that day. And how I process, how I deal with fears is getting them in alignment, right? I get my butterflies and I'm like, okay, what can you do for somebody else right now? Because that calms me. And so this was not like, I would love to take that and be like, oh, I'm such a good person.
But I
No,
love
no, no. I was
that.
doing it. It's
But I
selfish. Like,
really
it's
love
totally
that, and it's
selfish.
so practical. And when I do these videos, I
um,
cut it up into separate chapters, and I can't wait for this build trust chapter because it's such an applicable piece of advice that it was like what you were just saying about yoga and meditation. Not that we're dissing yoga and meditation because we love it, but it's like it's here, it's
yeah,
present. How can I use that stress or that
it's a
fear
tool.
to fuel me? And a way that you do that is
Mhm.
by helping others. And I love you for it.
Well, and I love you for it too, but I listen, full pause. If you haven't
Mm.
watched Trisha's TED Talk, when I tell you you could hear a pin drop in that room and it even talking about it right now, like full on my hair is staying on end. It is one of the most powerful talks I have ever witnessed in my life. And I have witnessed a lot of them. So please go watch it. That's
You.
you have to
Thank
see
you.
it. You
Thank you.
have to see
So
it.
this is going to
Yep.
lead
Yep.
me
It's true.
emotionally and logically to my fourth critical choice, which was to create community and belonging. And
Mm.
it is the fifth choice is obviously the anchor point of everything I do, but this fourth one around creating community and belonging, I think is why I am here today. And
Mm.
I never knew what it felt like to belong until I was in my 30s. And what I learned is that it actually, belonging takes action. Like, it actually takes you doing things, and it takes reciprocity. It's like a two-way action. You're not just going to belong by saying,
Yeah.
oh, I hope that I belong. So I had to go through my own process of
Right.
creating my own community, and now communities. And I
Mhm.
have such a strong sense of belonging in every place in my life. So, will you share with us what it feels like to not belong?
Mm.
Hmm.
Feels like death. I mean, literally, like we, from a scientific perspective, rejection, that pain of rejection actually has it lights up the brain in the exact same spot as physical pain. So it feels like you're literally being punched in the gut. You're from an evolutionary perspective, you get kicked out of the tribe, you're dead, right? Like you don't survive out in that scarce, sparse, dangerous environment alone. And so our brains, when we get rejected, when we don't belong, it is the most terrifying, fear-inducing, horrific thing that I think you can put anybody through. I would rather I would rather die a horrible death than be isolated from community. I think it is probably the most inhumane thing that we can do
Mhm.
to people.
We're social
We're social
species.
species.
And you,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
flip it. We could say, well, the opposite of
Yeah.
that, but I want to hear it in your words. When you feel
Yeah, yeah.
belonging, what happens? How does it feel?
I immediately my brain goes to like, let me tell you the science. Here's the hormones that happen. And the first thing that I say is um,
Hmm.
belonging is love. That's all it is. It's just belonging is the beat of a heart. Like it is the beat of a collective heart that keeps us going. Um, you get the endorphins, you get the dopamine, the motivation hormones, you get I think just about the scientific studies that show like you surround yourself with productive people, you become more productive yourself. One of my favorite experiments to do is to tune two violins to one another, right? And you put one side of the room and one the opposite, and because they're tuned to each other, because they belong, right? You pluck the string of one, and the other one is going to vibrate at the same
Wow.
frequency. And that to me is the power of human connection. Is like you don't have to be physically in the same space. You just have to be tuned to one another. And if we're tuned to one another, we're vibrating together. And that's a symphony, right? That's beautiful. That's that's belonging. Belonging is a
One
symphony.
of the things that I've been
Yeah.
very cognizant of throughout the years is my disparate communities. And I've been
Mm,
very intentional, not so good lately, but pretty intentional with trying to cross pollinate. So, really strong
mm,
work community, really strong neighborhood community, really strong workout community. Like whatever, we know those church community, and we have our people in those communities, and belonging
yeah.
occurs within that.
Yep.
And then, right, exactly. And there's this
Yeah.
like almost fear, almost fear of, oh, but if I invite one person from over here, are they going to see me in a different way? Or are they not going to, this person's not going to appreciate what I
Right.
appreciate about this, right? Like all that shit.
Yeah, because you're shouldering the expectations of other people instead of going, I'm who I am and I get along in each of these groups and I don't care if you get along with this tribe or not. This is still my tribe. And this is like, to me, this is the whole thing with rejection is you said it
Yeah.
took you 30 years to show up and to belong. And for me, what I realized was nobody can accept me as long as I'm rejecting myself. And like I had been rejecting myself because I'm like, well, what if they don't get along with them and then they're going to reject me? That's a rejection of self. I'm not even giving them the chance to reject
Right.
me, right? So like give them the chance to reject you. What a gift. Because if they reject you after they come to that tribe and they're like, "Oh, you get along with those people." They're
Yeah.
lost, man.
Oh my
Like
gosh. And I love the way you put it. And
yeah.
I appreciate, and I won't even name names here because there's too many for me to do it. But I am grateful for a lot of the people that I follow that are experts in their areas, and they have different
Mhm.
perspectives. They come from different communities, they have different backgrounds, they have different
Yeah.
experiences. And I find myself, absorbing it for me, but then I'm like, hold on, I'm absorbing this for me. But why am I not sharing this with others so someone else can
Mm.
absorb it? So and that is so from a social media standpoint, obviously, but then
Yeah.
physically. So I love your perspective
Mhm.
on that, and I would say for people that are watching this, do a little practice, a little exercise here of, you have your disparate communities, and I try to hold myself to this. What event or what circumstance can I invite two people from different communities? And it could be like an event that I'm having with neighborhood moms. That is one community.
Yep.
So two people from here, two people from here. Do they show up? I don't know. It depends on their schedule. Like, come in, come in.
Not on
And
you.
then my
Not
communities
on
know that
you.
I do this
Yeah.
too. Because I kind of feel like I have to ask permission for that,
Mhm.
because you got like the little,
Oh.
right? We could have major session.
Yes. And you have to justify and you have to be like, okay, so I know this is my church community and this is my book club community. And you might find that this person, they get a little feisty sometimes, but they're a really good human. And you just have to, we justify for so many other people. Like it's
Yeah,
nobody
it's
else's business.
it's
It's
just,
nobody
and
else's
then
business.
I'll end
Yeah.
this one with here, which is what I am learning more and more, because this is still a journey for me, Rebecca, right? Like I sit there and I and
We all
inspire and I
are. We
go
all are
around,
on
and the
this
fact of the
journey.
matter is, like, I am learning every single day and going, oh, I didn't think about it
Yeah.
that way. Is I
Mm-hmm.
believe now more than ever that the most important thing to us as human beings is the experiences that make us who we are, practical or profound. Like those experiences
Yeah.
are who we are. And in order to really create belonging, we got to be willing to, and then find the space to share those experiences.
You
Tell
just
me,
said something really
challenge me.
profound. And I think I wanna reflect it back to you because I think so often we're looking for like the big event, the profound moment where everybody comes together and we're just in this peace harmonic. It's not like stop looking for the right moment. Just do it. Just do the little things. Because it's always the little tiny actions. It's like, oh, we're just all impromptu getting together for coffee. Like it doesn't have to be these. That's what life is made up of. Life is made up of these little tiny moments. I will tell you the most loved and surrounded by belonging I've felt in a very long time happened just last weekend or 2 weekends.
Well,
I forget what
your
my
time
schedule is
is,
nutty. My timeline is like between
yeah,
one hospital
right.
visit and the other. How about
Exactly.
that? Right there in that moment. And literally it was five of my dear friends and myself, and we happened to walk across the street and meet across the street at the stadium, and we're just sitting on empty stadium stands on the sunshine. Like that was it was a profound moment, but there was no like build up of like, okay, this is the discussion we're going to have. We're going to hit all these important topics. We're going to make sure we talk politics. We're going to solve
Mhm.
for world peace. We're just no, we're six friends sitting in the sunshine, and it it was a transcendent experience. So I think, rather than trying to like really calculate everything, just
Just do it.
just live
Just
life.
live.
Just live. Just
The
live.
fifth critical
Yeah.
choice I made was to finally embrace my boundless capacity to give love, love the
Yeah.
verb, love the action, and to receive it, and to
Mm.
receive, accept the love, the verb, the actions that people wanted to give to me. And before embracing it, I had to actually realize that love isn't capped. It's not like, oh, I got a ration because then,
Enough.
no, like, love the verb
Mm.
begets love the verb. Uh, you know this. I'm going to say this just for those listening. Love the emotion isn't a choice, right? Like, love the emotion is like, it's there, it's not a choice. But love the verb, and however that manifests in your life in a certain situation, is a choice. So what I want to explore with you is, when we think about giving love, the verb, how does that show up for you in your life? How does that manifest? What are some examples of either you giving love or how others have given love to you?
When I think about giving and receiving love, the verb, the only thing that I think about is time because I think it's our most precious commodity. Um, I I'm really emotional about this right now because there's been a lot of um, there's been a lot of shortened timelines recently for me and people that I love dearly, and time and attention is love to me. I realized I had a fairly profound experience when I had a dear friend who was stage 4 cancer, and she came to visit me in the hospital, and she couldn't even come inside the hospital, but she came, and she sat in her car outside the hospital, and I was like, you know, this this is love in action. This is just and what I realized too is I'm really bad at receiving. because I was like, no, 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 no. I need to be giving to you. I need to be giving to you. This is exactly what I want to be doing all the time for everybody else. And that realization, I mean, like you said, we're growing all the time. I love, and I feel so flabbergasted, honestly, that you look up to me, because I feel like I'm just a fool stumbling my way through life. Like I'm like a toddler, just like fumbling along, and yeah, it's time and attention. It's just, that's it. That's all. You can give gifts all you want, and that's lovely and sweet. And obviously, you're thinking about that person, and I don't. It's like yoga, There's nothing wrong with it. It's a good thing. Do it. Do it. But it's our most precious resource, and so when we take the time, when we invest in people, when we give them our full attention, when we say yes, and we hold to those commitments, those two-way commitments, right? Even the short contracts of saying yes, I'm going to be there, and we do it. That's love.
And you are growing in your choice to receive it.
I'm working on it. I'm working on giving it better too, honestly. I think, I hope the whole world is working on giving it better, because I think, we have so many demands on our plate, and it gets harder and harder, I think, to give full time, full attention, full investment of ourselves, because you are pulled in 17 different directions. And
well, keep
yeah. So at the end of the day, this is all that matters. This is the
and at the end of the day,
Yep.
we can't make time. We can only make choices. And
That's right. That's right.
Right?
Oh gosh,
I
that's a good
I
line.
plagiarized it from someone. Someone said something that was catchy in that way, and it has stuck with me. We can't make time. We can only make choices. I believe with my
That's a good one.
whole heart that when we choose in every interaction, it's a choice in every interaction. And when we choose to show up with the choice of giving all that we have, that time and attention being a manifestation of giving love, and choose to receive and accept the time and attention, which is a manifestation of love back, that is when we create enduring success, and when we fuel the success of those around us. Rebecca, we talked last week when I invited you to be on this interview, and you told me what was going on, and you were like, I'm in. As long as I can actually, I have the energy to do this, I'm in. And we touched base this morning. Thank you for giving me the hour of energy that you have. You gave it all to me to give to others. And I love you for it. And that's love the emotion. That's love the emotion.
I love you too. Well, I love you too. And I, this is what I have to give. This is me offering love. So thank you for receiving it, and thank you for inviting me. This has been such an honor to be with you and to share. I know. Can we just do this every day? We don't have to podcast it, but Mike, okay.
I totally agree. All right, everybody, thank you for joining me for another episode of the Choose and Become interview series. This one with my friend, Dr. Rebecca Heiss. You'll find when I post this how to find her, but seriously, just Google Rebecca Heiss, Heiss. You'll find her YouTube, you'll find her Instagram. But if you go to her website and go to blogs, I think you're a very captivating writer. So I would just say, if you want to peruse some of that, do that. Rebecca, thank you.
Thanks. This has been such an honor. Thank you, Trish, and stay fearless, my friends.
Thank you for joining me for this episode of the Choose and Become interview series. To check out more episodes, go to www.trishkendall.com/podcast. Or go to any of your favorite podcast channels, including YouTube, under Trish Kendall Speaks, and you'll find this interview and more. Choose and become.